The ships appeared over Earth on a Tuesday morning. They were enormous, smooth constructs of metal and light that hung in the sky like impossible mountains. Commander Taman stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital station, watching the alien delegation's shuttle approach. His uniform felt too tight around his collar, but he refused to adjust it. First impressions mattered, even with beings from another world. Beside him, Dr. Hana reviewed her tablet for the 100th time. She was a xenobiologist, though until 3 months ago, that had meant studying the possibility of alien life rather than actually meeting it. Her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through the briefing documents. The aliens called themselves the Dominion, and they ruled 47 star systems. Earth apparently was number 48. "They're docking now," said Agent Jiwan from the back of the room. She was intelligent, though she pretended to be just another diplomatic observer. Taman knew better. He had served with her type before, back when his missions had different names and darker purposes. The airlock hissed open, and the delegation entered. Overseer Quilvin was not what humanity had expected. He stood on 6 legs, his body covered in a chitinous shell that shimmered with colors that had no names in human languages. His eyes were compound, multifaceted, and completely unreadable. When he spoke, the translator device on his thorax converted his clicking mandibles into perfect English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Overseer Quilvin of the Dominion Classification Bureau. We have come to extend an invitation for your species to join the greater galactic community." The human delegation applauded politely. Taman noticed that Quilvin's escort, 2 tall beings that looked vaguely reptilian, did not react at all. They simply stood, watching with vertical slit eyes that never blinked. Ambassador Subin stepped forward. She was Earth's choice for first contact, a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties on every continent. "We are honored, Overseer Quilvin. Humanity has long dreamed of this moment." "Indeed," Quilvin replied. His translator gave his words a faintly patronizing tone, though Taman could not tell if that was intentional. "However, before integration can begin, all species must undergo classification testing. This is standard protocol, established over 4,000 years of Dominion expansion." Dr. Hana spoke up, her scientific curiosity overriding her nervousness. "Classification testing? What does that entail?" Quilvin's mandibles clicked in what might have been pleasure. "We must understand your species' capabilities, limitations, and threat assessment. Every sentient species occupies a classification tier from 7 to 1. Class 7 species are pre-industrial. Class 1 species are considered apex civilizations. Most spacefaring species, such as yourselves, typically rank Class 4 or Class 5. And this testing is mandatory?" Ambassador Subin asked carefully. "For integration, yes. The Dominion must know how to properly place your species within our society. It determines trade relationships, military obligations, and political representation." Quilvin paused, his eye clusters focusing on the ambassador. "Surely you understand. You would not grant citizenship to individuals you knew nothing about, would you?" Taman saw the logic even if he did not like it. Earth needed allies. The Dominion had faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and technologies that seemed like magic. Refusing would mean isolation. "How long does this testing take?" he asked. "For most species, 3 to 5 days. We will require a representative sample of your population, perhaps 6 to 10 individuals demonstrating various human capabilities." Dr. Hana and Commander Taman exchanged glances. They had already discussed this possibility. Earth's governments had prepared lists of candidates, people who represented humanity's best qualities. "We accept," Ambassador Subin said. "When do we begin?" "Tomorrow. We have prepared a facility on your moon, neutral ground, as you might say." Quilvin's mandibles clicked again. "I should mention as a courtesy that in 4,000 years of classification testing, only 3 species have ever caused what we term incidents during the process." "Incidents?" Jiwan asked from the back of the room. "Unexpected complications. Anomalous results. Nothing to concern yourselves with, I assure you. Those species were quite unique. Humanity appears to be refreshingly standard, based on our preliminary scans." Something in the way Quilvin said "standard" made Taman's military instincts flare. He had heard that tone before, from officers who underestimated their opponents, but he said nothing. This was diplomacy, not war. The meeting continued for another hour. Details were arranged. Earth would send its representatives to the lunar facility. The Dominion would provide the testing equipment and evaluators. Results would be delivered within 1 week. As the alien delegation departed, Tai-Min watched them go. Dr. Hana came to stand beside him. "Do you trust them?" she asked quietly. "Does it matter? We need what they have. FTL drives, medical technology, access to the galaxy." He turned to look at her. "But no, I don't trust them. Not yet. They think we're simple, standard. Let them think that. Better to be underestimated." Juwan approached them both. "I'll be observing the tests. Officially as a safety monitor. Unofficially as intelligence." "What are you expecting to find?" Hana asked. "Whatever they're not telling us. 4,000 years of testing and only 3 incidents? That's either a very good success rate or a very controlled narrative." The next morning, the selected humans gathered at the lunar facility. Tai-Min and Hana were joined by Minho, a combat specialist from Earth's Special Forces. There was also Professor Dion, a game theorist and strategic analyst. Dr. Sora came as the medical supervisor. Others would arrive as needed. The facility was impressive. White corridors stretched in every direction, lit by soft lights that never seemed to cast shadows. The testing chambers were visible through transparent walls, each one filled with equipment whose purpose Tai-Min could only guess at. Overseer Quilvin greeted them personally. "Welcome, humans. I hope you find your accommodations comfortable. We have attempted to match Earth's atmosphere and gravity." "It's perfect," Hana said. Though Tai-Min noticed she was studying everything with those sharp scientist eyes of hers, other aliens had gathered to observe. Tai-Min counted at least 7 different species, each more strange than the last. Some floated in containment suits filled with liquid. Others had too many limbs or not enough. One appeared to be made entirely of crystalline structures that hummed with inner light. "Are all these observers?" Minho asked. "Representatives from various Dominion member species. Classification events are considered significant cultural moments. They wish to witness humanity's assessment." Quilvin gestured toward the first testing chamber. "Shall we begin? We will start with basic physical assessments, simple exercises to establish baseline capabilities." Tai-Min stepped forward. "I'll go first." The chamber door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, a treadmill-like device waited. Quilvin explained that Tai-Min should run until exhausted. Sensors would measure everything from heart rate to oxygen consumption. It seemed simple enough. Tai-Min began running. The pace was easy at first, comfortable. But he noticed the aliens watching intently. Their attention focused on the data screens that surrounded the chamber. After 30 minutes, he expected them to stop the test. They did not. After an hour, he began to wonder if this was some kind of endurance challenge. After 2 hours, he saw Quilvin conferring urgently with another evaluator. Still, Tai-Min ran. His military training had prepared him for far worse than this. He controlled his breathing, found his rhythm, and let his mind drift. This was nothing compared to the survival courses he had endured in his Special Forces days. After 6 hours, Overseer Quilvin finally stopped the test. Tai-Min stepped off the machine, breathing hard but not collapsed. He accepted the water that Dr. Sora offered him. Through the transparent wall, he could see the aliens in animated discussion. Their body language, though strange, conveyed something clear, confusion, and perhaps the first hints of concern. Dr. Hana leaned close to him. "Their preliminary scans said we were standard. I don't think 6-hour endurance runs are standard. Should I have stopped earlier?" Tai-Min asked. "Too late now?" She smiled grimly. "I think we just failed to be boring." Overseer Quilvin returned, his mandibles clicking rapidly. The translator remained silent for a moment before engaging. "Commander Tai-Min, that was remarkable. We will proceed to the next physical assessment after you have rested." "I can continue now if you prefer," Tai-Min said. More clicking. More confused silence. "That will not be necessary. Please rest. We have much data to analyze." As the humans were escorted to their quarters, G1 fell into step beside Tai-Min. She said nothing, but her slight smile told him everything. The testing had only just begun, and already humanity was becoming interesting to the Dominion. That could be very good, or very bad. Tai-Min suspected they were about to find out which. The second day of testing began in a laboratory that smelled of ozone and something else, something vaguely medicinal that made Dr. Hana's nose twitch. She sat in what the Dominion called an environmental adaptation chamber. wearing only a thin bodysuit covered in monitoring sensors. Through the transparent walls, she could see Overseer Quilvin and his team watching data screens with increasing frequency. "We will now test your species' tolerance to atmospheric variations," announced Evaluator Thex, the reptilian alien who had been assigned to physical assessments. His voice came through speakers built into the chamber walls. "Please remain calm. If you experience distress, the emergency signal is on your left armrest." Hana nodded. She had read the briefing. Most Class 5 species could tolerate perhaps 10% variation from their home atmosphere. Class 4 species managed 20%. The Dominion wanted to see where humans fell on that spectrum. The air in the chamber began to change. Hana felt it immediately, a subtle shift in how her lungs worked. The oxygen content was dropping. She focused on her breathing, keeping it steady and controlled. Her medical training helped. She had delivered babies in high-altitude villages, had worked in flooded hospitals where the generators had failed and the air recyclers had stopped working. This was just another day of controlled discomfort. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. Hana noticed that Evaluator Thex had stopped taking notes. He was simply staring at his screens now, his vertical pupils dilated wide. "Dr. Hana," his voice crackled through the speakers, "are you experiencing any difficulty?" "Some lightheadedness," she replied honestly, "but nothing severe. We have reduced oxygen levels to 65% of your normal atmosphere." "Oh, is that significant?" There was a long pause. Then Quilvin's clicking mandibles joined the conversation. "Most Class 5 species would be unconscious. Class 4 species would be in severe distress. You are simply lightheaded? Should I pretend it's worse?" Hana asked, genuinely confused. "No. No, please continue being honest." Another pause. "We are going to try other variations now." Over the next 3 hours, they subjected Hana to different atmospheric compositions. High carbon dioxide, trace amounts of methane, increased nitrogen, lower pressure, higher pressure. With each change, she adapted. It was not comfortable, but it was tolerable. Her body complained, but it did not fail. When they finally released her from the chamber, Dr. Sora was waiting with water and a medical scanner. She ran it over Hana quickly, efficiently. "Your vitals are stressed but stable," Sora said quietly. "But Hana, they're looking at you like you're some kind of freak show." Hana glanced at the observation gallery. Indeed, at least a dozen aliens had gathered now, all watching with expressions she could not read but which felt distinctly like alarm. "What did I do wrong?" she asked. "I don't think you did anything wrong. I think you did everything too well." Minho's testing came in the afternoon. The combat specialist was taken to a different chamber, this one equipped with what looked disturbingly like medical equipment. Taemin, having been cleared by the medical team, insisted on observing. Evaluator Thex explained the test in his flat, emotionless voice. "We need to assess human pain tolerance and injury response. This is critical data for understanding your species' combat capabilities and medical needs." "You're going to hurt him?" Taemin asked, his voice hard. "We will inflict controlled injuries and measure his response. Nothing permanent. Nothing fatal. Your Dr. Sora has approved the protocols." Minho waved off Taemin's concern. "I've been through worse in training. Let's get it over with." The first test was simple. They applied pressure to Minho's hand, gradually increasing it. Most species had a threshold where they would cry out or pull away. The Dominion wanted to measure that threshold. Minho's face tightened, but he remained silent. The pressure increased. His hand began to bruise under the transparent force applicator. Still, he said nothing. "Specialist Minho," Thex said, "you may indicate discomfort at any time." "I'm aware," Minho replied through clenched teeth. They stopped the test when the sensors indicated his bones were approaching fracture points. Minho's hand was purple with bruising, but he had not made a sound. Dr. Sora immediately began treatment, but she was shaking her head in what Taemin recognized as professional disbelief. The second test was worse. They administered what Thex called controlled electrical stimulus. To Taemin, it looked like torture. Minho's muscles locked up, his jaw clenched so hard Taemin worried his teeth would crack. But when the stimulus ended, Minho simply breathed heavily and asked, "Is that all?" The third test involved a small incision on Minho's arm. They wanted to measure healing response and pain management during active injury. They gave him no anesthetic, just made the cut and began monitoring. Minho watched his own blood well up with the detached interest of someone observing a science experiment. Fascinating, he said. You can see the platelets clumping already. Evaluator Thex turned to Overseer Quilvin. They spoke in their own language, but the translator devices eventually caught up. This is not normal, Thex was saying. This species has redundant pain management systems. Their adrenaline production is excessive. They continue functioning through injuries that would incapacitate Class 4 species. Continue testing, Quilvin ordered. We need complete data. By the end of the day, Minho had sustained and recovered from a catalog of injuries. Each time he bounced back faster than the Dominion's models predicted. Dr. Sora explained to the confused aliens about human healing factors, about how Earth's high-gravity environment and dangerous ecosystem had created a species that could take tremendous punishment and keep moving. On Earth, she said, we have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Our entire evolutionary history has been about surviving things that should have killed us. Taman saw several. Aliens exchange what he interpreted as worried glances. The fourth day brought a different kind of test. They took the entire human team to a massive chamber that stretched several kilometers in each direction. It was filled with artificial terrain, forests and hills and streams created in perfect simulation of an Earth environment. This is a pursuit test, Evaluator Thex explained. We have released several types of prey animals into this environment. They are programmed to evade capture. Your task is to catch one. Anyone? Professor Dayon asked. Anyone. Most species attempt this test using tools or traps. We measure problem solving and resource utilization. How long do we have? Taemin asked. Most species require 2 to 3 hours. Class 4 species can complete it in 1 hour. Taemin looked at his team. Minyo's eyes had already gone distant, tracking. Hana was scanning the terrain with practiced observation. Professor Dayan was calculating angles and probabilities. We'll do it in 30 minutes, Taemin said. Thex's head tilted, an alien gesture of disbelief. That is not possible. You'll see. What the Dominion observed over the next 27 minutes would later be described in their reports as deeply disturbing. The humans did not use tools. They did not set traps. They simply ran. Minyo spotted a prey animal first, something like a deer that bounded away at impressive speed. He pointed. The humans began pursuit. The animal was faster in short bursts, but the humans did not stop. They did not slow. They just maintained a steady, relentless pace. When the prey tried to hide, Hana tracked it using signs that Taemin barely noticed, broken twigs and disturbed soil and the faint smell of fear sweat. When it ran again, they followed. 15 minutes in, the prey animal was exhausted, its sides heaving. The humans were breathing hard but still moving. When it finally collapsed, too tired to run anymore, Minho simply walked up and tagged it. In the observation room, Overseer Quilvin was reading a report that Evaluator Thex had just submitted. His mandibles clicked so rapidly the translator gave up trying to keep pace. This is a persistence predator, Thex was saying. They chase prey until it dies of exhaustion. This hunting method should not exist in a spacefaring species. It requires too much energy, too much time. Tool use should have replaced it millions of years ago. But it did not, Quilvin said quietly. No, humans are apex predators from a death world. They have the stamina of pursuit hunters, the pattern recognition of pack predators, and they have maintained these traits even after developing technology. Thex paused. Overseer, I need to escalate this classification. Humans are not Class 5, they may not even be Class 4. I am aware. Quilvin turned to look at the humans who were now being congratulated by a very nervous Dr. Sora. Continue testing. We need to complete the cognitive assessments before we can make a determination. And if the cognitive tests confirm what the physical tests suggest, then we have a problem. A significant problem. That evening, the human team gathered in their quarters. Jiwan had been listening to the Dominion's communications, using equipment she was not supposed to have. They're scared, she reported. They keep using the phrase Category X. I can't find it in any of their public databases. Category X? Hana asked. A classification above Class 1, apparently. Or maybe beside it. Something they don't advertise. Taemin sat back thinking. We've been honest with them. We haven't hidden our capabilities. Maybe that's the problem, Professor Dayon said. Maybe they've never met a species that can do what we consider normal. Running for 6 hours is not normal, Hana pointed out. It is for humans. For us, it's just determination. But to them? Dayon shook her head. To prey species who evolved on gentle worlds, we must look like monsters. Are we monsters? Minyo asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Finally, Taemin spoke. We're human. If that makes us monsters to them, that's their problem, not ours. Through the window of their quarters, they could see Earth hanging in the black sky, blue and green and impossibly beautiful. Somewhere down there, billions of humans lived their lives unaware that their species was being tested, unaware that they were failing to be ordinary in the most spectacular way possible. Tomorrow would bring the cognitive tests, and Taemin had a feeling those would not go any better. Or perhaps they would go exactly as they should, and the Dominion would finally understand what humanity truly was. Predators, problem solvers, survivors, and maybe, just maybe, something the galaxy had never seen before. Inquisitor Ven did not have a face that humans could easily read. His amphibian features were smooth, wet, and constantly shifting colors based on his emotional state. Currently, he was displaying a pattern of dark blue and yellow that the translator labeled as professional concern. He floated in a tank of viscous fluid, speaking through a voice synthesizer that made him sound like he was gargling. The cognitive assessments will determine your species' intellectual classification, he explained to the assembled humans. Physical prowess is impressive, but the Dominion values mental capacity above all else. This is where most species truly prove their worth. Professor Dayan sat across from him, her fingers steepled in thought. Beside her, Dr. Hana reviewed the testing protocols on a data pad. Taemin stood at the back of the room with his arms crossed, watching everything. What exactly will you be testing? Dayan asked. Pattern recognition, logic systems, creative problem solving, social dynamics, strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, the standard battery of assessments that have classified every sentient species in the Dominion. And what classification do you expect us to achieve? Hana asked. Ven's colors shifted to something the translator called diplomatic uncertainty. Based on your physical results, we are hoping for balance. A species can be physically formidable but intellectually moderate. This is common. The inverse is also true. What matters is the complete picture. What Ven did not say, but what everyone in the room understood, was that the Dominion desperately wanted humans to score low on cognitive tests. It would make the disturbing physical results easier to manage. The first test began in a room filled with three-dimensional holograms. Floating shapes rotated in space, each one part of a larger pattern. The human subjects were supposed to identify the pattern and predict the next shape in the sequence. Dr. Hana completed the first 10 sequences in under 3 minutes. The average Class 5 species took 15 minutes. Class 4 species managed it in 8. Perhaps the test was too simple, Ven suggested, his colors flickering to something close to embarrassment. Perhaps, Hana agreed politely. They increased the difficulty. The patterns became more complex, involving not just shapes but colors, movements, and dimensional shifts. Hana slowed down, but only slightly. After an hour, Ven stopped the test. You have completed sequences that Class 3 species typically fail, he said quietly. Your pattern recognition is extraordinary. I'm a xenobiologist, Hana replied. My entire career is recognizing patterns in biological systems. This is just applied logic. Your entire career has been imagining alien life that did not exist until 3 months ago. Exactly. I've spent years recognizing patterns in theoretical data. This is much easier. Ven's colors went dark purple. The translator remained silent on what that meant. Professor Dayan's test involved game theory scenarios. She sat in a simulation chamber where holographic aliens presented her with social dilemmas, trade negotiations, resource allocation problems, conflict resolution scenarios. Each one had multiple solutions, and the Dominion wanted to see which approaches humans preferred. Dayan approached each problem methodically. In the trade negotiation, she identified the other party's weaknesses and leveraged them ruthlessly while maintaining a friendly demeanor. In the resource allocation problem, she created a distribution system that appeared fair, but actually favored her position significantly. In the conflict resolution scenario, she found a solution that forced both parties to depend on her for future stability. When Overseer Quilvin reviewed her results, his mandibles clicked in agitation. You consistently chose what we categorize as aggressive cooperation strategies. You appear friendly while maximizing your advantage. Is that wrong? Dion asked. It is not wrong. It is simply unusual. Most species lean toward either pure cooperation or pure competition. You seem to do both simultaneously. Of course, that's basic social dynamics. You cooperate when it benefits you, compete when necessary, and try to stay flexible enough to switch between them. Most species find that level of social duplicity exhausting. We call it being professional. Dion smiled. On Earth, this is how we conduct diplomacy, business, and most personal relationships. Quilvin made a note on his datapad. The note would later become a full report titled, Human Social Manipulation, a Concerning Analysis. The creativity test was conducted in a workshop filled with various materials and tools. The task was simple: solve a problem using the available resources. The problem was a locked container that needed to be opened without damaging its contents. The Dominion expected humans to try 8 to 12 different approaches. Most species worked through logical sequences, attempting tools in order of obvious utility. Dr. Hana and researcher Kyung, a neuroscientist who had joined the team, spent 5 minutes examining the container. Then they ignored the tools entirely and began combining materials in unexpected ways. They created a chemical reaction using cleaning supplies. They reprogrammed a maintenance robot to use its sensors differently. They even attempted to exploit a temperature differential by heating one part of the facility. By the end of 2 hours, they had generated 47 unique solutions. 17 of them actually worked. 3 of them were so dangerous that Overseer Quilvin stopped the test and implemented new safety protocols. Why did you attempt to create an explosive? He demanded. It would have opened the container, Hana said reasonably. It would have destroyed half the facility, but it would have opened the container. You said solve the problem. You didn't say solve it safely. Researcher Kyung nodded. On Earth we have a saying. If brute force isn't working, you're not using enough of it. That is horrifying, Ven said, his colors cycling through what the translator labeled as existential distress. Minho's cognitive test involved tactical scenarios. He was placed in a simulation of various combat situations and asked to devise strategies. The Dominion expected basic military thinking, standard approaches that had been used across the galaxy for millennia. Instead, Minho consistently chose options that the system labeled as non-standard or highly risky. He used civilians as intelligence assets. He weaponized infrastructure. In one scenario, when defending a city, he proposed flooding the city's lower levels to create choke points, accepting that thousands of his own people would drown. You value victory over preservation of life, Evaluator Thex asked, his reptilian features unreadable. I value victory that ensures long-term survival, Minho corrected. Sometimes that requires sacrifices. It's called acceptable losses. Most species find the concept of acceptable losses psychologically damaging. Most species aren't apex predators who spent 100,000 years learning that hesitation means death. The statement hung in the air, like a physical thing. The stress test came on the 5th day. The Dominion had saved it for last, hoping that accumulated fatigue would normalize human responses. They placed Professor Dayon and Commander Taemin in a crisis simulation, with time pressure, resource scarcity, and cascading failures. Most species' performance declined under stress. Decision-making became impaired. Accuracy dropped. This was expected, normal, safe. Humans did not follow that pattern. As the pressure increased, Dayon's solutions became faster, sharper, more decisive. Taemin's tactical awareness actually improved. Their communication became more efficient, stripped of unnecessary words. They entered what Earth psychologists called a flow state, where stress became fuel rather than hindrance. This is impossible, Inquisitor Ven said, watching the data stream. Their accuracy is increasing. Their reaction times are improving. It's the adrenaline, Dr. Sora explained from the observation room. Humans evolved to become more dangerous when threatened. Our stress response doesn't impair us, it enhances us. For a short time at least. For how long? Depends on the human. Some can maintain it for hours. Special Forces soldiers like Commander Taemin can sustain enhanced performance for days in extreme circumstances. That is a predator's trait. Yes, Sora agreed simply. Overseer Quilvin pulled Inquisitor Van aside. They spoke in low tones, but G1's surveillance equipment caught every word. They are Category X, Ven was saying. Every metric confirms it. Physical durability beyond Class 3. Cognitive flexibility rivaling Class 2. Social manipulation strategies we have only seen in apex predator species. And stress enhancement rather than stress degradation. Category X species are supposed to be extinct, Quilvin replied. They destroy themselves before reaching space-age technology. Humans did not. They developed nuclear weapons and did not immediately exterminate themselves. They faced global catastrophes and cooperated enough to survive. They are a Category X species with Class 2 cognitive capability and Class 3 physical capability who somehow achieved stable civilization. What do? We complete the testing. The Deep Protocol. That test is forbidden except in extreme circumstances. These are extreme circumstances. Ven's colors shifted to dark red. We need to know if humans are controllable. If they can be integrated safely, the Deep Protocol will tell us. And if they fail, then we quarantine Earth and recommend maximum containment protocols. That evening, the humans gathered in their quarters. G1 played back the conversation she had recorded. The mood in the room grew tense. Category X, Hana said. They keep saying it like it's a death sentence. Maybe it is, Taman replied. Maybe we're exactly what they fear. What do they fear? Minyo asked. Professor Dayon had been quiet, thinking. Now she spoke, her voice soft but certain. They fear competition. The Dominion has maintained control because every species they've encountered has been categorizable, manageable. Some are strong, some are smart, but none are both. None combine physical capability with cognitive flexibility with social adaptability. We do, Kyung said. Yes, we're generalists in a galaxy of specialists. We can fight, think, adapt, and cooperate. We're what happens when an apex predator develops empathy without losing its edge. So what happens tomorrow with this Deep Protocol test? Hana asked. Taman stood and walked to the window, looking out at Earth. We show them exactly who we are. No hiding, no pretending to be weak. If they can't handle humanity at full capability, that's information we need too. They might quarantine Earth, Jiwan warned. Then we'll deal with that. But I won't have humanity apologize for being what we are. We survived ice ages and plagues and world wars. We'll survive this too. The others nodded one by one. They were scared, but they were also determined. It was a very human combination. In the Dominion Observation Center, Overseer Quilvin watched the humans through their quarters security feed. He saw them standing together, supporting each other, preparing for whatever came next. They are beautiful, he said quietly. They are dangerous, Ven corrected. Can they not be both? Not safely. Not for the rest of us. Quilvin's mandibles clicked, a sound of deep sadness. Then tomorrow we learn if the galaxy has room for humanity, or if humanity must make room for itself. Neither option felt safe anymore. The Deep Protocol chamber was different from the others. It was larger, darker, and filled with equipment that looked less like testing instruments and more like containment systems. Taman noticed the emergency blast doors, the energy shields, the armed security drones hovering near the ceiling. This was not a laboratory. This was a bunker. Director Zelkov had arrived overnight. He was tall by any species standards, a being of crystalline structures that refracted light into painful colors. When he spoke, his voice emerged from vibrations in the air itself, requiring no translator device. He was, Jiwan had learned, one of the oldest beings in the Dominion, a survivor of what they called the Purge Wars, 2,000 years past. Humans, Zelkov said, his voice like wind through glass caves. You have performed exceptionally in all standard tests. This has created a classification problem. You exceed parameters. You demonstrate traits that should not coexist in a single species. Therefore, we must administer the Deep Protocol. Professor Dayan stepped forward. What is the Deep Protocol? A test administered only 4 times in Dominion history. A test given to species who demonstrate Category X characteristics. And what happened to those species? Hana asked quietly. Zelkov's crystalline structure dimmed. 3 were quarantined. 1 was destroyed. The humans absorbed this in silence. Taman felt Minho tense beside him, combat instincts triggering. He put a hand on the specialist's shoulder, a silent command to wait. What does this test involve? Taman asked. A simulation. Your homeworld Earth is invaded by a hostile force. You are given limited resources and command authority over your planet's defenses. You must devise a strategy to protect your species. That sounds straightforward, researcher Kyung said. It is not a test of success, Overseer Quilvin added, his mandibles clicking nervously. It is a test of approach. We need to understand how humans respond to existential threat. The strategies you choose will determine whether Earth can be integrated into the Dominion or must remain isolated. You're testing if we're too dangerous to be trusted, Dayan said flatly. Zelkov's light brightened, the equivalent of a nod. Yes, please enter the chamber. You have 4 hours, the human team entered. The chamber sealed behind them with a heavy thud that echoed finality. Inside, holographic displays filled the air, showing Earth from orbit surrounded by an alien fleet. The scenario parameters appeared as floating text: enemy fleet, 200 vessels. Technology superior to Earth's current capability. Objective: subjugation and resource extraction. Human assets: current military forces, civilian infrastructure. 1 month until invasion begins. Victory condition: ensure human survival and independence. Taemin immediately began organizing the group. Dayan, overall strategy. Hana, resources and logistics. Kyung, research and development options. Minyu, tactical implementation. I'll coordinate. They worked fast, speaking in shorthand developed over days of testing together. In the observation room, dozens of alien species watched in silence. Some had seen the deep protocol before, most had not. All understood what was at stake. After 30 minutes, Professor Dayan called the group together. I have the strategic framework. You're not going to like it. Show us, Taemin said. She pulled up a holographic Earth and began annotating it with rapid gestures. The enemy wants to subjugate us, not exterminate us. That's a weakness. They need us alive, at least initially. We use that. How? Minyo asked. We make ourselves too expensive to control. Stage 1, we don't defend. We attack. Hana blinked. Attack? With inferior technology. We don't attack their strength. We attack their logistics. Their fleet needs supplies, fuel, repair facilities. Those come from somewhere. We identify and destroy those sources. We don't have ships capable of that, Kyung objected. No, but we have rockets. We have satellites. We have nuclear weapons we can repurpose as space mines. We turn our entire space debris network into a weapon. Anyone approaching Earth faces a cloud of shrapnel traveling at orbital velocity. Taemin saw it immediately. We militarize low Earth orbit. Make it impossible to approach safely. Correct. Stage 2. We weaponize the planet itself. She zoomed in on major cities. We evacuate population centers. Not to save people, to create traps. We rig the cities with conventional explosives, biological hazards, radiological materials. When they land occupation forces, they inherit contaminated territory. That will kill millions of civilians, Dr. Sora said from her medical console. Evacuation saves most of them. Those who stay are volunteers or combatants. This is total war. We make every meter of Earth cost them blood. Minho was nodding now, his tactical mind engaged. We turn our infrastructure into weapons. Dams become bombs. Power plants become radiological denial zones. The water supply becomes a distribution system for biological agents. You're describing scorched Earth, Hana said. I'm describing survival. Stage 3, we study them while they study us. Every ship they lose, we salvage. Every piece of technology, we reverse engineer. We give our scientists one mandate: learn, adapt, improve. Researcher Kyung pulled up development timelines. If we prioritize military research, we could replicate their shield technology in 6 months, their weapons in a year. And while we're learning, we're hurting them, Dayan continued. We use guerrilla tactics, symmetric warfare. We make them afraid to leave their ships. We make them paranoid. We make them wonder if the child bringing them food is actually a scout, if the surrendering soldier is actually a bomb. Taemin saw the complete picture now. We break their will, make occupation so costly, so bloody, so psychologically damaging that they leave. Or we break them entirely. Stage 4, counteroffensive. Once we have their technology, we don't defend anymore. We hunt. She pulled up star charts. They have a homeworld, colonies, supply lines. We find them. We attack them. We do to them what they tried to do to us. You're planning genocide, Hana whispered. I'm planning deterrence. We hurt them so badly that no one else ever tries. We become the cautionary tale, the species you don't invade because the cost is extinction. Silence filled the chamber. Even Minho looked disturbed by the complete ruthlessness of the plan. "There's one more stage," Dayon said quietly. "Stage 5, we win. And then we take everything they have. Ships, technology, territory. We don't just survive. We become the threat. We make sure this never happens again by becoming strong enough that no one dares." They refined the plan for the next 3 hours. They calculated casualties. Human losses projected at 40% in the first year. 60% if biological warfare escalated. 80% if nuclear weapons were deployed against Earth. But human survival rate if they surrendered completely. 5% over a century of subjugation. "We accept the losses," Taman said. "We survive and we win. That's what matters." They presented their strategy to the observation room. The holographic display showed their complete battle plan. The orbital minefield, the city traps, the guerrilla war, the technology theft, and the eventual counter-invasion of enemy territory. They showed casualty projections with clinical detachment. They explained how they would weaponize refugees, use hospitals as command centers, and turn every human into a potential combatant. When they finished, the observation room was completely silent. Director Zelkov finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "You would sacrifice half your population." "To save the other half, yes," Dayon replied. "You would poison your own world, temporarily. Earth has recovered from worse. You would use your children as weapons. We would give every human a choice to fight or flee. Those who choose to fight we use effectively. You would pursue your enemies to their homeworld and destroy them. We would ensure they never threaten us again." "Yes." Zelkov turned to Overseer Quilvin. In a language without translation, he said something that made every alien in the room shift uncomfortably. Overseer Quilvin approached the chamber's communication panel. "Commander Taman, one question. Your plan involves the use of nuclear weapons on your own population centers." "If necessary, yes." "Your species possessed nuclear weapons for how long before achieving stable civilization?" "About 80 years. And in those 80 years, how many times did you use them?" "Twice in warfare, hundreds of times in testing. Never in desperation. You have had the capability to destroy yourselves for nearly a century and chose not to?" "Chose not to so far," Taman corrected. "We keep them ready. Just in case," the aliens whispered among themselves. In the human quarters, Agent Jiwan was recording everything, her hands shaking slightly. This was it, the moment that would define humanity's future. Director Zelkov's crystalline form pulsed with light. "The test is complete. Humans, you have demonstrated Category X strategic thinking. You think in terms of acceptable losses. You escalate threats rather than submit. You weaponize your own civilization. You pursue total victory at extraordinary cost. Is that wrong?" Anna asked. "It is not wrong. It is terrifying," he paused. "The last species to think this way were the Vraks. They nearly destroyed the galaxy 2,000 years ago." "What happened to them?" Professor Dayon asked. "We contained them. Barely. At a cost of trillions of lives." "Then you understand," Taman said. "You understand why we think this way. Because someone has to. Someone has to be willing to pay the price." "Yes, we understand." Zelkov turned to the assembled observers. "Clear the room. I must consult with the High Council. The fate of Earth will be decided within the day." As the aliens filed out, their whispers filled the corridors. The humans remained in the chamber, exhausted and uncertain. "Did we just doom our species?" Kyung asked. "No," Taman said. "We showed them the truth. If they can't handle it, that's their failure, not ours." But in his heart he wondered if honesty had been the right choice. If humanity's greatest strength was also its greatest curse, and if the galaxy had room for a species that refused to die quietly. The High Council chamber of the Galactic Dominion existed in a space that was not quite physical. Quantum technology allowed beings from across 47 star systems to meet without the constraints of distance or time. High Arbiter Korath presided over it all, an ancient being whose species had long since transcended physical form. He existed as patterns of light and thought, older than most civilizations and wiser than any computer. Director Zelkov presented the human test results to the Council. The data streamed through the shared consciousness of the chamber, every test, every measurement, every horrifying implication. "This cannot be accurate," said Council Member Thrawn, representing the Bektori hive mind. 6-hour endurance running? 65% oxygen tolerance? Stress performance enhancement? These metrics belong to Category X species. The data has been verified, Zelkov confirmed. Humans are Category X, but unlike previous Category X species, they are also cognitively advanced, Class 2 minimum, possibly Class 1 in specific metrics. That combination should be impossible, another council member objected. Category X traits require aggression that undermines social cooperation. How did they achieve space-age technology? They nearly didn't, Overseer Quilvin added, his image transmitted from the lunar testing facility. Human history shows 47 major wars in the last century alone. They developed nuclear weapons and came within minutes of mutual extinction multiple times, but each time they chose cooperation over annihilation. Barely, High Arbiter Korath observed, his voice resonating through every consciousness present. Show me the deep protocol results. The simulation played out for the council. They watched, in silence as the human team devised their strategy. Weaponized cities, orbital minefields, biological warfare, scorched Earth tactics, and eventual counter-invasion. The casualty projections appeared in stark numerical reality. 40% losses accepted as tolerable, Council Member Vesh said quietly. They would sacrifice nearly half their population. They classify it as acceptable losses, Quilvin confirmed. This is standard human military doctrine. They calculate cost versus benefit even in existential scenarios. The Vraks thought the same way, Thrawn said. They pursued victory at any cost. It took the combined might of the galaxy to stop them. The Vraks were not like humans, Director Zelkov argued. The Vraks pursued conquest for expansion. Humans only escalate when threatened. Review their history. Every major human conflict began with one side attempting subjugation. The defenders escalated until the aggressors surrendered or were destroyed. That is not reassuring, Vesh replied. You're telling us humans are peaceful until provoked, then become genocidal? Not genocidal. Survivalist. There is a difference. High Arbiter Korath considered the data for what felt like hours but was only moments in the quantum space. Finally, he spoke. We have 3 options. Quarantine Earth and forbid contact, attempt integration with severe restrictions, or classify humans as an existential threat and recommend containment protocols. Containment means destruction, Thrawn said bluntly. It does. The council fell silent. The weight of that decision hung over them, the potential extinction of a species that had just reached for the stars. I propose a 4th option, Zelkov said, all attention focused on him. We make them wardens. Wardens? Several council members asked simultaneously. The Dominion has maintained peace for 4,000 years through cooperation and mutual benefit. But we are not warriors. When the Vraks rose, we barely contained them. When the Kresh Rebellion occurred, it took decades to suppress. We rely on peaceful species to maintain a peaceful galaxy. What are you suggesting? Korath asked. Humans are not peaceful. They are controlled violence. They have the capability for war, but the wisdom to avoid it when possible. What if we use that? What if humans become the Dominion's military response to threats we cannot otherwise address? You want to weaponize them? Vesh said, horrified. They are already weapons. I want to aim them in a useful direction. Give humans a purpose within the Dominion. Let them protect rather than conquer. Channel their predator instincts toward defending the community. Pack bonding, Quilvin said suddenly. Humans form intense loyalty to their chosen groups. If we make the Dominion their pack, they will defend it with the same ferocity they showed in the Deep Protocol. This is madness, Thrawn objected. We would be inviting a Category X species into our civilization. We already have, Zelkov replied. Earth knows the Dominion exists. Humans know about faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and advanced technology. We cannot simply quarantine them and hope they forget. They will pursue that technology with or without our permission. Better they pursue it with us than against us, Korath mused. But this decision cannot be made without human input. Bring their ambassador. Ambassador Subin was transported to the council chamber, her consciousness temporarily elevated to exist in the quantum space. It was disorienting, overwhelming, but she maintained her composure with practiced diplomatic grace. Ambassador Subin, High Arbiter Korath said, "Your species has completed classification testing. The results are concerning." "I've been told," Subin replied carefully. "My team has reported the reactions. We must decide Earth's fate, but first you must understand what you are." Korath shared the complete test data directly with her mind, an overwhelming flood of information. Humans are what we call Category X. You are apex predators from a death world who achieved space-age technology without losing your predatory traits. You are dangerous. Subin absorbed the information, seeing her species through alien eyes, the endurance, the pain tolerance, the aggressive cooperation, the acceptable losses doctrine. It was humanity laid bare, stripped of pretense and self-deception. "We know what we are," she said quietly. "We've always known. We just didn't know it was unusual. It is more than unusual. It is unprecedented at your technology level." Korath paused. "We offer you a choice. Earth can remain isolated, cut off from the Dominion. You will develop on your own, but without our technology or guidance." "That's option 1, Subin said. "What's option 2? "Integration as wardens. Humans join the Dominion but occupy a unique role. You become our military response force. When threats arise that require combat capability, humans respond. In exchange, we provide technology, resources, and a place in galactic society. You want us to be your soldiers. We want you to be our protectors. There is a difference." Subin considered this. "And if we refuse both options? Then we must consider containment protocols. For the safety of the galaxy, we cannot allow a Category X species to develop independently, with access to advanced technology and knowledge of the Dominion's existence. Containment. That's a polite word for destruction. It is a word we have used only once in our history. We do not wish to use it again." Subin felt the weight of that moment. Billions of human lives depending on her next words. "I need to consult with Earth. You have 1 hour in this space, which translates to approximately 1 day in normal time. Choose wisely." The consultation with Earth's governments was frantic, heated, and ultimately decisive. Admiral Hyan spoke for the military consensus. "We take option 2. We become wardens. It gives us access to technology and a role we can excel at." "We're agreeing to be attack dogs," objected one political leader. "We're agreeing to be guardians," Hyan corrected. "And yes, we're good at it. Better than being isolated or destroyed." Dr. Sora provided the medical community's perspective. "If we're isolated, we'll develop this technology anyway. It will take centuries, but we'll do it. And when we emerge, we'll be even more dangerous, because we'll have done it alone, possibly hostile to a galaxy that rejected us." Professor Dion gave the strategic analysis. "Warden status gives us allies, resources, and legitimate purpose. We integrate slowly, build trust, and prove we can be part of the galactic community. In a century, maybe less, we're full members rather than tolerated threats." The vote was not unanimous, but it was clear. Earth chose integration. Ambassador Subin returned to the council chamber. "Earth accepts warden status, but we have conditions." "Speak them," Korath said. "First, human sovereignty remains absolute. We govern ourselves. Second, we choose which missions we accept. We're not mercenaries who can be hired out. Third, we receive full access to Dominion technology and scientific databases. Fourth, this arrangement is temporary. Within 1 standard century, Earth gains full Dominion membership with no restrictions." "Those are significant demands," Vesh said. "You're asking us to be your weapons." "Weapons make demands." Korath's light pulsed, the equivalent of laughter. "You negotiate even now when your survival is at stake." "Very well. Your conditions are acceptable with one addition. Humans must undergo cultural integration training. You need to understand the species you will be protecting." "Agreed," Subin said. "Then it is decided. Earth is granted warden status within the Galactic Dominion. Welcome, humans, to the larger universe. May you protect it as fiercely as you would protect your own. The formal announcement was made 3 days later. Across Earth, humanity learned that they were not just meeting aliens, they were joining an empire. The reactions varied wildly, from celebration to protest, from fear to excitement. Commander Taemin stood in the lunar facility, now being converted to a human embassy and training center. Overseer Quilvin approached him, mandibles clicking in what Taemin had learned to recognize as nervousness. "Commander, I must ask, knowing what you know now about how we perceive you, does it change how you see yourselves?" Taemin considered the question. "No, we're still human, still trying to do the best we can with what we are. If that makes us monsters to you, we'll live with it." "You are not monsters," Quilvin said quietly. "You are survivors. That is perhaps more frightening." 6 months later, a hostile force attacked Dominion colony world Tethys. The colony sent a distress call. The Dominion Council debated response protocols. Before they reached a decision, Earth responded. Commander Taemin led a strike force of 300 humans. They arrived in retrofitted Dominion ships equipped with weapons the aliens had considered too dangerous to deploy. The enemy force numbered over 5,000, well-armed and entrenched. The battle lasted 72 hours. Humans used tactics the Dominion had never seen: zero-gravity close combat, weaponized atmosphere venting, and psychological warfare that exploited alien perceptual weaknesses. They fought with the persistence that had carried them through 6 million years of evolution, the same relentless endurance that had shocked the testing facility. The enemy surrendered unconditionally, not because they were defeated militarily, but because they were terrified. The humans had not stopped, had not slowed, had not shown mercy or fatigue. They had been exactly what the test predicted: apex predators in a galaxy of prey. The Dominion Council received Commander Taemin's after-action report. It was clinical, detailed, and utterly matter-of-fact about the casualties inflicted and accepted. High Arbiter Korath filed it under a new designation: Human Response Protocols, Incident Report 001. Overseer Quilvin added a personal note to the file, handwritten in human style as a gesture of respect. "May whatever gods exist have mercy on anyone who threatens the Dominion, because the humans certainly won't." The note was flagged, copied, and distributed throughout Dominion military intelligence. Within a month, every species in the galaxy knew about humanity, about the Death World species who had become wardens, about the predators who now guarded the prey. Agent Jiwon sat in her Earth office reading translated reports from alien news services. They had dozens of names for humans now: the relentless, the unbreaking, the terrible ones, Death's children. Agent Mirai entered, carrying more reports. "The Bektori want to hire us for a border conflict. The Shellan are requesting human advisors for their military academy. 3 species have submitted formal applications to open embassies on Earth. We've been wardens for 6 months and they're already dependent on us," G1 observed. "Is that good or bad?" "It's human. We excel at becoming indispensable," G1 smiled. "They wanted to classify us. They wanted to put us in a box, label us, understand us. And now they're learning the truth. You don't classify an apex predator, you just try not to make it angry." On Earth, life continued. Humans went to work, fell in love, raised children, pursued dreams. They were still the same species that had painted caves and built pyramids and reached for the moon. But now they reached for the stars with purpose, with invitation, with a role to play. The Galactic Dominion had tried to classify humans. The test results had been marked as an incident report. But the incident was not humanity's failure. It was humanity's introduction. And the galaxy would never be quite the same.